Hello and welcome. Today I'm bringing you along with me to the library. So here's the deal. I have books at home that I should be reading that are like on my TBR. I have a pile of mood reading options to kind of keep me engaged and entertained, but I'm just kind of feeling like I'm in a reading slump. I'm not really excited about anything. I'm sort of going through the motions of this was what I had thought I was going to read, and so I probably should read it, but it's just nothing is really holding my attention right now. So, what I've decided to do is take a trip to the library, and I have come up with sort of a game for myself. So, the idea here is I'm feeling a little out of sorts, and so I want to kind of bring that childlike fun back into my reading life. So, here are the rules of the game. Number one, I am going to turn my phone on to airplane and not have internet access, not jump onto the library Wi-Fi, just keep my phone like a brick so that I'm not jumping on Storygraph to see what the content warnings are, so that I'm not going to Goodreads to look at the ratings, none of that. I'm just going to kind of go into it blind. I'm going to read what it says on the inside cover or in the back, and use that as well as my spidey instincts for choosing books. In addition to my phone being turned off so that I cannot search, I'm going to have an overall theme, which is summery, beachy reads. It is hot. It's sweltering. I've got the air conditioning on. It's morning. We haven't even hit the hottest part of the day, and it is just gross outside. So I want to kind of lean into that and settle into that hot summer weather, even though I'm not at the beach, and maybe this will help to transport me there. So I'm going to have this beachy summer theme, and then I'm going to choose 5 books, only 5 books. That way I don't have too many that I'm bringing home and then I'm overwhelmed with my choices, kind of like I already am at home. But I've just got 5 books, and I can kind of pare that down to the one that I want to read. Within those 5 books, I'm actually going to use 5 different prompts to choose those books. So the first one is I'm just looking for a light summer read. Second prompt I'm going to have is that I'm going to choose a book by an author that I've never read anything of before. That way it feels fresh and new. In that same vein of like breathing fresh life into my reading life, I am also going to choose a book that is outside of my comfort zone. So this is a book in a genre that I would not really normally choose, just totally outside of my comfort zone. That way, you never know, can't knock something until you try it. So it's something where I'm hoping that I'm going to try it and really kind of get a feel for, is this something that I like or not? Next, I'm going to choose a book simply for the cover. So again, it's going to have that beachy, summery theme to it, but I'm just going to pick a book and say, you know what, this cover looks lovely. I'm going to choose this one. And then last, I am going to choose a book that I normally would not ever choose. So this is a book that normally I've seen it, I've, maybe even picked it up before, but I've put it back down for whatever reason, just kind of thinking this is not a book that I would normally choose or want to read, and so I'm going to just leave it on the shelf. Well, today I'm going to find a book that I recognize as one of those books, and I'm going to bring it home with me and then try to see what I think of it. So, let's go. I love how quiet a library is. So my searching technique was pretty simple. I just started alphabetically and looked for book titles that had the word summer in them. And I noticed that there were authors like Mary Kay Andrews and Nancy Thayer who had summer in almost all of their titles, or at least the covers all looked like they were set at vacation and at the beach. It kind of reminded me of Ellen Hildebrand, who I have read some of her books, but I was just amazed at how many of, for instance, these Nancy Thayer books just had these beautiful Nantucket covers. Susan Mallory was another author that just had so many beach scenes and summer titles. We got Summer Book Club, Beach Vibes, the Boardwalk Bookshop, just so many of these summery feel type books. So I just read the flaps. I had enough time that I could just spend time looking at the back of the book and really kind of getting a feel for the vibe and whether it was something that I could use for a prompt and whether it was one that I wanted to bring home. I also found this Catherine Center section. I love how vibrant her covers are. This one actually had pink sprayed edges, just fun looking books. All right, back home. I've got my nice, cool mint tea, and I am going to share with you the 5 books that I chose for each of the 5 prompts at the library. So the first book is The Sunset Beach. This is by Mary Kay Andrews. This could also work for author that I haven't ever read before. But again, I'm really feeling that beachy summery vibe. This is the one that meets that prompt, and I thought this was a perfect chance to try one of her books. So the thing that really excited me about this is that we have a main character who inherits a beachside bungalow. It is on the Gulf side of Florida. And the other thing I really loved about this is that not only with that idea of like inheriting a bungalow, which just sounds so romantic, there's a murder mystery that also I think implies that there is some corruption in her father's law firm. So I think there's a lot of family issues there. But I did like the idea of there being a mystery and then again, the bungalow setting. So this is the one that I chose for the summery beachy read. The first sentence is Sunset Beach, April 2018. Drew turned the key in the ignition and the white Bronco's engine gave a dispirited cough and then nothing. So that's Sunset Beach. This was the one that I chose for the pretty cover, and that is the Boardwalk Bookshop by Susan Mallory. This also would have worked for an author that I have not yet read, and it also would work for a summery beachy read, but I chose it for the cover specifically. Just again, gets you right into that hot summer at the beach mood. The thing that really sold this book for me is that it is about 3 women. So it's really about like found family sisterhood. And each of these 3 women, I think they pair up to have a bookshop and a bakery and something else where they all 3 of them kind of own this business together. They get together every weekend to have champagne and to talk about their lives. And so I think their love lives are lacking. And so we kind of see the heartbreak, the normal pain of life, as well as celebrating successes and also just them running their businesses, I think. So again, I have not read anything of Susan Mallory, so I'm excited about that. And I just thought this book cover was so enticing. All right, here's the start for the Susan Mallory book. Probably not the best opening line for someone like me. Chapter 1, I thought there'd be more sex. Let's not give up on it yet. We're going to see. Next, I have The Bodyguard. This is by Catherine Center. I have picked up multiple Catherine Center books. I think the rom-commers, I think I've even checked them out of the library and then just never actually gotten to them. So I figure I would try it. I think Catherine Center is known for being a wholesome and clean romance writer. So we don't have a lot of open door romance or even fade to black, I don't think. I think it's very chaste. At least that's my hope. The reason why I chose The Bodyguard is because it is set, I believe, during vacation time, where we have a woman who is actually the bodyguard of a man who is very famous, well-known celebrity. And I think he's had some death threats, and so she's his bodyguard. He wants to go home or needs to go home to his family's Texas ranch. And instead of telling his family that like somebody is out to get him, they decide, or I guess he asks her to act as his girlfriend instead of his bodyguard when he goes. Okay, so this is The Bodyguard, chapter 1. My mother's dying wish was for me to take a vacation. It is blurbed on the cover by Emily Henry. I've read one Emily Henry, and it was so, no, I've read 2 Emily Henrys. They're just heavier on spice. So I'm hoping that I haven't mislabeled Catherine Center as a more wholesome romance writer. So that is a book that, again, I wouldn't normally pick it up, or if I do pick it up, I don't ever seem to get to it. And I thought this is the perfect chance to put this on a stack and see if I am interested in reading a Catherine Center book. None of these books are authors that I've read before, but this is the one that I'm going to use for the prompt of a new to me author. I have Elizabeth Strout's Lucy by the Sea. This is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize, which I think is very exciting. So this one is interesting because it is set during the lockdown in 2020. I don't normally read books about that time period. I lived it, and so I don't typically gravitate towards those types of that timeline specifically. But this is the story of, I believe, a mother and her son and her ex-husband. They leave Manhattan and they go to a house on the coast of Maine, and they have to live together during lockdown. One. Like many others, I did not see it coming. So, I don't know. This is very compelling to me. Okay, now we've come to the prompt of a book that is not in my comfort zone. Last month, I did a used library sale and mentioned Karen Slaughter. I had one person who said, too violent, I don't think you're going to like it. I had somebody else say, her books are great. So I figured, rather than judging an author by her last name or a book by its cover, in this case, although I will say the cover looks really great, I picked a Karen Slaughter. And this is Why We Lied. The setting of this is a secluded alpine lodge, and it is a locked room, I think, locked area murder mystery. It seems to me, it looks like a hot sort of lake setting, even though it's alpine. So we'll see. Oh, yeah, we've got a map, and it has a lake. Here we go. Prologue. Will Trent sat down at the edge of the lake to take off his hiking boots. My question to you is, for now, what is your vote so far from the first sentence and my description? So let me know. And then I'm going to sit here and read the first chapters of each of them and put them in order of what I think I'm going to read. And the plan is to try to read at least one and let you guys know what I think. All right, I've read the first chapters in all of these, and I know which ones I'm not going to read. So the first one I'm not going to read is Lucy by the Sea. I do like the writing structure of this, but it's just so embedded in the pandemic, and they're talking about masks and gloves and working from home, and I still think it's probably for me too soon to read about it. It's interesting because Tom Lake by Ann Patchett is also set during the pandemic, and the daughters come home, but we're being told a story that had happened years ago that is just really compelling. In this, it seems like we are set in like this sunset relationship situation where you've got a couple who are divorced, but now they are living in this house in Maine, quarantined together. I mean, even when they go to get into the house, the guy who meets them is like, I left groceries in there. You're going to need to quarantine. It just feels, even though it's been 6 years, it just still feels too close. So that is a no-go for Lucy by the Sea. The next one that I know is a no-go is the Boardwalk Bookshop, which again is disappointing to me. I had really high hopes about this idea of it's a muffin shop, a bookshop, and a gift shop, and each of the women shares it. You can tell, I mean, the writing's on the wall. One of the girls actually cries because she's afraid that the bookshop owner, because she's so attractive, is going to break her brother's heart because they're going to fall in love. I don't know. It's also probably from, a little bit more modern in its sensibilities as indicated by the first sentence. So I am going to not be reading this one either. This one is a harder choice. The murder does happen right in the prologue. And I think the biggest thing that's holding me back on this is that I've discovered that this is part of a series. And so I feel like they're even referring to a nemesis, a past nemesis, right in the prologue. I don't know. I am concerned about the fact that I might be jumping into the middle of a series. Now, am I going to get so into a Karen Slaughter series that I'm going to wish I'd started at the beginning? Probably not. But because I checked all of these out without actually doing research on them, I think I inadvertently chose a book that is in a pretty long series. It's the Will Trent series. It also is pretty violent, I will say. It's not terrible, but it is pretty violent. So this one I'm less sure about, which I think is a good sign for Karen Slaughter. She might get another chance with me. So then the next one this one is now one of the ones that I'm debating on reading, and that is The Bodyguard. So I'm not so against the idea of the romance so much as I'm not sure if I like the main character's voice. So her mother has just passed away. We learn that she's a bodyguard. They take her off of duty. She's in competition with somebody else in the office. We learn all of this in the first chapter. But she's just very whiny, I think. And I don't know, that to me kind of has turned me off of it. So while I find it intriguing, it's probably a no-go. I think the winner is Sunset Beach. So unfortunately, poor Catherine Center is going to get returned again. So I think I'm going to try this Mary Kay Andrews Sunset Beach. I think it meets a lot of the prompts. This is an author that I haven't read before. It has a light summer read. I think you could, you got the pretty cover, a book that I would not normally pick up because I've never picked up a Mary Kay Andrews. So it meets almost all of the prompts just in this one book. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start reading this and see if it helps me kind of get out of my reading slump and rejuvenates my reading life. All right, you guys, I've headed to the creek to finish Sunset Beach by Mary Kay Andrews and to share my thoughts with you about it. This very much is not a book that I would typically pick up. So our main character sleeps with someone pretty early on, pretty quickly, and it's not super detailed, but it certainly is not my normal fare of books that I read. So that kind of set aside, there was a little bit of language in it as well, in case somebody needs that content warning. But as predicted, my favorite part was her kind of redoing the cottage that she inherited. She inherited this adorable little cottage that was right on the beach that her Poppy and Nani, I think, from Cuba had purchased. And then her mom didn't sell it. She saved it for her daughter. She didn't know that until Drew, it's our main character, realized that when her father reached out to her after her mother's death and said, "What do you want to do about the cottage?" Sure enough, her experience with sweat equity and kind of cleaning out the cottage and then redecorating it, anytime she was at the cottage, I was happy. So that definitely was my favorite part. The second thing is there were actually two different mysteries in this in two different timelines. And so when we were about maybe 100 pages in, we then started to go back in time to kind of figure out what had happened with Drew's parents. And there's a connection where she found newspaper clippings of a missing woman in her mother's things in the attic of this cottage. And so she was kind of like, why does my mom have this? And that led her down a path of exploring that, in addition to a murder that was at a beach hotel in the current timeline. So I obviously don't want to spoil anything because honestly, if you're going to the beach this summer and you want just sort of a light read that's also propelling, where you're like, what's going on? I want to know the mystery. This is a fine book to choose. I do think of the 5 that I pulled from the library with my little prompts and games. This is, I still believe, the best of the bunch. And it actually really settled down. So the beginning was, like I said, the main character was had slept with someone, and there was language, and it was, just, I was kind of like, I don't know if this is my jam, but I do think it settled down a little bit and got really interesting with the mystery. I do think this could have been done in less pages. So we had some characters that she met that we rehashed her history on quite a bit, when I think maybe other things could have been happening. So that's really kind of my thoughts on this. I think it wrapped up fine. I will say this. One of the twists I did not see coming. One of them I did. In the past, I did not see where that was going at all. I went for the red herring. For the present murder mystery, I did figure it out. Maybe halfway through, I was like, this particular part of this is shady. But it still was, again, propelling and engaging. So now we get to this idea of going to the library and helping me with my reading slump. So as I said, this is not a book that I would typically pick up, but has it helped to kind of rejuvenate me in wanting to go back to reading some of the things on my TBR and maybe even just doing some mood reading? Absolutely. I think bringing fun and games into my reading life to do this helped me to kind of think, you know what, I need to think a little bit more outside the box. I do need to maybe pick up things that I'm not sure about. And as I'm making decisions on what I'm reading, that I should add in more of reading the first, maybe the first couple paragraphs if I don't have time, or the first chapter, to just see if I'm interested. I really do think it was so fun to come up with prompts and to spend so much time in the library, and to also turn my phone off so that I wasn't checking Goodreads and seeing what the reviews were, and instead just going by what did the cover, did the cover excite me? Did the back flap seem engaging? All of that, and kind of bringing that into my reading life and making it a game definitely helped me get out of my slump. If you are experiencing a little bit of a slump and not really kind of being into the books that you've got on your stack or around you right now, then I would encourage you to come up with some prompts, go to the library, turn your phone on airplane, and just peruse until you find a few books that you think they could be interesting. If you have the time there at the library, read the first chapter and see what you think so that you can only check out one. Or, library loves when we bring books home. Bring them home and kind of maybe let them marinate and give yourself time to decide which one you want to read. So I would love to know what your tips and tricks are for if you feel like you're getting into a reading slump. And also let me know what your favorite book that you've brought home from the library that was an unexpected surprise has been lately. I would love to hear that as well. So thanks you guys so much for going on this ride with me, and as always for watching. And until next time.